Welcome to my latest case, the Curse of Blackmoor Manor. To start, choose Junior or Senior Detective. If you're new to adventure games or need some help, choose Gameplay Overview. Dear Ned, greetings from jolly old England. Although right now I'm not so sure about the jolly part. That's because I'm on my way to Blackmoor Manor, where the daughter of one of our neighbors is living. The daughter, whose name is Linda, recently married Hugh Penvellyn, a British diplomat. Hugh travels a lot, so the only people at the manor with Linda are Hugh's aunt, Mrs. Drake, and Hugh's 12-year-old daughter, Jane. The thing is, ever since Linda moved into the manor, her health has gone downhill. She's practically bedridden, and no one seems to know why. Her mother is convinced something is terribly wrong and wants me to find out what. So here I am, about to be dropped off at a huge centuries-old mansion in the middle of a dark, foggy moor. I can't tell whether the butterflies in my stomach are because I'm excited or just a tad creeped out. Talk to you soon. I hope. Nancy.
Night, miss, and good luck.
Who's there? Hello? There's something out there!
Where, child?
Over there! I mean, something was out there.
Come in. I'm Mrs. Drake. I take it you are Nancy Drew?
Yes, and I really did see something, Mrs. Drake. I heard something, too.
Oh, people are always seeing and hearing things on the moor at night, especially you Americans. Why don't you just go on up to your room? It's the one with the moon on the door.
I'd like to see Linda, if I could.
I'm afraid Linda is, not quite ready to meet with you just now. But please, come see me after you've unpacked. I'll be in the conservatory.
All right, thank you. Wonder what goes there. Something fits in here, but what? John Penvellyn. A tripod. For a camera, maybe?
Boar's Head Pub, this is Tommy.
Hi, this is Nancy Drew.
Right. Nancy Drew, out at the old Blackmoor Manor, are you? You must be Hank Marvin up there. Pity about your kitchen, but we'll fix you up for some Bexin posh. Just tell me what you'd like.
Okay. What do you have?
We've got some loop-de-loop, bangers and mash, a real fine pinky and perky, and a delicious dog's eye, me fork and knife, just rubber-ducked. Hello?
Could you repeat that?
Sure, we've got some loop-de-loop, bangers and mash, pinky and perky, and a dog's eye, and they're all Robin Hood.
I think I'll pass for now.
Oh, alrighty. Well, you know, we're the May West round here, especially for a gym. And don't worry if you haven't got an Oscar, because the cheese will pay for everything. But feel free to ring us, even for a bowler.
Yes, we'll go bowling sometime. Thank you.
Oh, Ethel, do I have to learn this?
Yes, I'm afraid you do.
If I do well, can we play a game?
Yes, but only in French.
Oh.
The key fits, but it won't turn. I need to put some kind of grease in there first.
Boar's Head, this is Tommy.
Hi, this is Nancy Drew. I'd like to order some food.
Sure, we've got some loop-de-loop, bangers and mash, pinky and perky, and a dog's eye, and they're all Robin Hood.
I'd like some pinky and perky, please.
Good choice. Uncle Fred and Johnny Rudder?
Okay.
All right then, we'll come round and leave it at your Rory. Baked potato.
Oh, forget it. Stay in Italy as long as you want, then. Some kind of husband you're proving to be. It's not all in my head. Don't bother.
Linda? Hi, it's me, Nancy Drew.
Nancy Drew, our friendly neighborhood detective. Well, welcome to Blackmoor Manor. I apologize for greeting you under such unusual circumstances.
And I'm sorry to have to bother someone in your condition.
My condition? What's my mother told you? What her son-in-law keeps telling me, that it's all in my head, that I'm just an unhappy new bride, that I just need time to adjust? I'm tired all the time, my mouth is dry, my vision is blurry, but that's not important. Here's what's important, Nancy. There are some doors that should never be opened. There are some doors that hold secrets which must never be known. That's everything you need to know. Now if...
Mummy, can I come in?
No, you're supposed to be in your lessons.
Lessons are over. I want to meet Nancy.
I said no, Jane.
Okay.
That was my stepdaughter. She can be such a pest sometimes. Anyway, I understand you feel an obligation to my mother, but trust me, there's nothing you can do. You're welcome to stay, but I strongly recommend that you go home as soon as possible.
I can't go home empty-handed. It might jeopardize my ace detective status. Linda? Okay, I'll let you rest. But I'll be back. I'm here for you if you need me.
Hi! You must be Nancy. I'm so pleased you're here. I'm Jane. I know you've come to visit my stepmom, but I'd love it if you could pop by whenever you get the chance. Oh, we'll have such fun. Let's play a game.
Not right now. Maybe later. I'd like to ask some questions first.
Sure, what do you want to know? About Mummy? I mean, Linda. I do hope you'll help. She's been a bit out of sorts lately.
When did she start getting sick?
I was playing in Mummy's room when she wasn't there, and when I looked up, there was a lady, all dressed in black, putting something on Mummy's nightstand.
Did you recognize the woman?
I couldn't see her face because she wore a cape with a hood. The lady put a note on Mummy's nightstand, but I didn't read it. That's when Mummy started feeling poorly. I don't want to think about that. Let's play a game. It will cheer me up.
Not right now, but maybe later.
You can come in any time you want, even if I'm not here. I've got some really smashing things. I'm so happy you've come, Nancy. I hope you can make Mummy feel better. That's my family tree. Ask me anything about anyone. Go on, ask me.
Tell me about Randolph.
Randolph the Red, so named for his bright red hair, was considered a hero at the Battle of Poitiers. For his heroism, King Edward III awarded him with the lands in the region called Penvelin. That's how we got our name.
Odo, that's an odd name.
Yeah, he isn't very exciting, really. Like farming and cows. His son Milo is much more interesting.
What about Milo?
Milo inherited not only his grandfather's red hair, but his military prowess. Milo was instrumental in the siege of Caen and was awarded even more lands by Henry V.
And Hugo?
He had a lot of kids, and his dates were 1401 to 1466.
Tell me about Albert.
He was very mysterious, and the people of Blackmoor were afraid of him because he knew all these scientific things. No one knows much about him, though.
Who was Anor?
He was Odo's brother.
What did Guido do?
He made pizza. No, I'm joking, of course. I don't know anything about him except that he died in 1433 because he outlived all of his siblings.
Tell me about Simon.
He lived from 1358 to 1412. No, 1411. We don't know very much about him.
What do you know about Cecilia?
She married the Lord of Limerick and did a lot of needlework. She had a ton of kids, too, like 20. Can you imagine?
Who was Josephus?
Yeah, they used a lot of Latin names back then and weird spellings. He became like a priest or parson or something.
Who was Anisha?
A nun.
Who was Robertus?
He was a knight but died in some kind of jousting tournament. He was twins with Josephus.
Who was Jeanette?
It's Genet. I think he wrote plays, maybe. I don't know, I forget.
Who was Agatha?
She was a nun. I think she lived in Ireland.
Who was Marjorie?
She died when she was a little girl. It was really sad.
What about Jacobus?
He died when he was like 9.
Tell me about Lucia.
Isn't that a pretty name? If I have a daughter, I'll name her that.
Who was Adam?
Like he married Eve. Duh, no kidding. I actually don't know anything about him. I think he was the son of Hugo, though, but I forget.
Who was Joan? Is that misspelled?
No, that's how they spelled it then. She got married to this duke somewhere in Flanders.
Who was Nicolina?
She died when she was a baby. I have many ancestors who died young, but Ethel said that Penvillans in general live a long time.
Tell me about Garrett.
He drowned on his 19th birthday.
What did Francis do?
He got into a big fight with his brother James and lived in France.
Who was Elizabeth?
Like the Queen of England? Oh, you mean Elizabeth, my ancestor. It's weird that she's the only ancestor named Elizabeth, since it's such a popular name.
Who was Virginie?
She was married to the Duke of Barrowbold and died in the Great Fire of London.
Tell me about Walter.
He was born in 1448 or 9. I'm kind of bored doing this right now.
Who was Marge?
I forget. I think she was... I don't know.
Tell me about Geoffrey.
I'd rather not. I'm kind of bored. Wouldn't you rather play a game?
Can you tell me about George, the one born in 1566?
He lived and died. End of story.
Tell me about Francois.
He was a dwarf and became a trusted confidant to Louis XIV. Little people often held positions of great esteem at that time.
Tell me about Edmund.
He was into cows. He did a lot of breeding of cows and sheep and got some kind of award from the king.
Who was Charles?
Charles was a famous judge and wrote very important books on law. But his boy, Garrett, drowned while he was really young.
Who was Gillian?
She married the Duke of Ballingsford, but she stayed at Blackmoor to raise her son Thomas, who inherited the estate when his grandfather Charles died.
Tell me about Thomas.
He was Charles's grandson and wrote a lot of poetry. He also had 3 wives, Catherine, Anne, and Mary, but not at the same time. They died and he just remarried.
Who's James?
He never married, but one day, when he was very old, a baby was found at the doorstep to the manor. He took her in and raised her as his own. That was Eleanor.
What can you tell me about Eleanor?
Just that she was burned as a witch, but it wasn't true, and her father, James, died when he saw her die, and then the family fled to France. I don't want to talk about this.
Who was Edward?
He lived in France with his father, Le Comte de Roquefort. He was very interested in languages and translated books from Greek and Latin.
Who was Helene?
Can we stop soon? Helene married the Duke of Bouville and died in 1760. End of story.
Who was Frederic?
He was a soldier for the French. He was killed in the War of Spanish Succession in July of 1702.
Who was Théophile?
He lived most of his life on the island of Mauritius and discovered 1 million plant species.
It looks like George and his brother Henri died in the same year. What happened?
They were lost at sea. I guess they traveled a lot to Canada, especially to Oak Island.
It looks like George and his brother Henri died in the same year. What happened?
They were lost at sea. I guess they traveled a lot to Canada, especially to Oak Island.
What do you know about John?
He was an opera singer, just like my mom. He sang in some Mozart operas, I think.
Who was Peter?
Let's see. He had a wooden leg, and he was attacked by wolves once. That's all I remember.
Who was Caroline?
Caroline was a chemist and helped identify the element lanthanum. I'm not sure what the element does. I think it's a heavy metal.
Tell me about Corbin.
I don't know. He doesn't have a coat of arms in the Great Hall because he didn't live here. Wasn't even a British subject, that's all I know.
And Philippe?
He made a fortune in the New World and bought back most of the lands that were confiscated by Cromwell.
Who's Penelope?
I don't know much about her except that she was very loved by practically everyone in England. and there were a million poems written about her. If I have a boyfriend, I'd never let him write a poem about me. Ugh.
Tell me about Martha.
She was completely daft. She'd wear really bizarre outfits, and she was one of the first women to ride on a steam train.
Tell me about Brigitte, the one born in 1759.
She never married and was bonkers for astronomy. She adopted her sister's son, Richard, who later got killed at Waterloo.
Tell me about Richard.
He died in Waterloo fighting against Napoleon.
Tell me about Edward, the one from the 19th century.
He was a big explorer and went all over the world. He wasn't very close with his son, who was also an explorer. They'd only see each other by chance in weird remote places like Samarkand and Walla Walla.
What about Colin?
Oh, this is so cool. They say he was a spy for England, even though he lived in France. Isn't that so very? I'd like to be a spy.
Tell me about Brigitte, the one who was born in the 17th century.
She was absolutely mad about cricket, the game, not the insect. She actually saw the first cricket match in 1744. Personally, though, I can't stand the sport.
Who's Marianne?
She got shipwrecked on this deserted island with a whole bunch of yahoos, and they wrote a story about it. Yeah, that's it.
Tell me about Jean.
Hello, it's pronounced Jean. He was killed by a boar on a hunting trip. They eat people's flesh, you know? No, I'm kidding. But he really did get killed by a boar. Serves him right, though, for hunting some poor little animal.
Who was born in 1763?
That was Isabel. She wrote many letters about the French Revolution and actually saw Marat's dead body in the bathtub. Talk about gross!
Who was Jacques?
Don't laugh, but he invented the lawnmower bag in 1831. I swear I'm totally not making this up.
Who was the William who died so young?
He was Edward's little brother. He named his son after him.
Were Cassandra and Hector twins?
Uh-huh. Cassandra was totally obsessed with lawn tennis and was one of the first people in England to have a court installed at her home. Hector was the first ball boy.
Who was Cynthia?
I don't know. I'm kind of tired right now.
Were Cassandra and Hector twins?
Uh-huh. Cassandra was totally obsessed with lawn tennis and was one of the first people in England to have a court installed at her home. Hector was the first ball boy.
Wow, Catherine sure lived for a long time.
She lived the longest of any Penvillain. I hope I live that long, but not if I'm all like creaky and cranky.
Tell me about Obadiah.
He lived in the US for most of his life and married this weird woman named Eustacia. She's still alive and sometimes calls us. She's totally creepy.
Who was Rachel?
She died in France during the war. I guess she worked for the French resistance.
What do you know about Letitia?
Loves plants, hates noise. You can ask her about it. She's usually in the conservatory with her plants.
Tell me about Rose.
It's a real sad story. She and her granddaughter Rachel lived in France during the war and were killed.
Who was Esther?
Esther Penvillain Romberg, born in 1897 and died in 1951. Her friends called her Polly.
What did Nahum do?
He died in the flu epidemic.
Who was William?
He was an explorer just like his father. He was kind of a whiner, so I heard.
Who was John, the one who was born in 1873?
He was this huge naturalist and did a lot of exploration in the Amazon. I think there's a plant named after him. Or maybe a monkey, I forget.
Who was Malachi?
He was a doctor of medicine and did a lot of research on icky skin diseases. Happily, I'm blessed with perfect skin.
Who was Alan?
He was my grandfather, but I didn't know him because he died when I was little. I guess he was nice. Nigel gave that to me when I was in the library once. I think he was hoping it would scare me, but it didn't. I'm too smart to believe in that sort of stuff.
This phone number just might come in handy.
I used that to make cakes for Lulu the parrot. That's why the ingredients are so nasty. Like I would eat mealworms.
What is this book?
Don't know really. Ethel gave it to me. She said it belonged to my grandfather. Do you think Brady Armstrong is cute?
Each of those cups seems to be associated with a Roman numeral. Who's this?
That's my mum, my real mum. She's an opera singer. It's not like she's famous or anything, but she does live in Paris. That was written by Charles Penvillin way back in like the 1500s. When I read it, it seemed really familiar, you know? I totally love that show. Isn't Brady Armstrong so dreamy? Total hottie.
Looks like you're learning some interesting stuff.
Bet you wouldn't say that if you were the one who had to learn it.
You had a guinea pig?
Yes, but it died.
When?
I don't know. I'd really rather not think about it, all right?
Oh, you startled me. You must be Nancy. I'm Jane's tutor, Ethel.
Hello, Ethel.
Jane is very excited you're visiting. You're all she's talked about for the past week.
I saw Jane's lesson schedule. That's quite an unusual list of subjects.
Yes, well, I'm sorry, but I'm in a bit of a rush. I need to go over some things with Jane.
Oh, I guess I'll be going then.
It was a pleasure meeting you, Nancy. Our paths will cross again, I'm sure.
I need the key. I need the key. Oh, it's just a parrot.
Scared ya?
No, you didn't.
Did you? Did you?
What's your name?
Lolo, 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 Lolo.
Okay, I get the point. Lulu.
Lolo, 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 Lolo.
Do you by any chance know Latin?
Quiste rogavit, bene vidi vici, semper ubi sub ubi, morituri status.
I'll take that as a yes. Would you mind translating something for me?
Fire away.
Solstitium?
The longest day of the year is solstitium, the summer solstice. The shortest day is bruma, the winter solstice. Equinoctium vernum is a spring equinox. Equinoctium autumnalis is a fall equinox. Day equals night. Lulu's always right.
Bye, bird.
Allez, bye-bye. Polly is a stupid bird. Polly is a stupid bird.
This must be Mrs. Drake's room. Guess she's not in her room.
Polly is a stupid bird. Polly is a stupid bird.
There goes my cell phone. Hello?
Hi, Nancy. It's Mrs. Petroff. How is everything? Have you seen Linda yet?
Literally speaking, no, but I did talk to her. Not that she told me anything.
I'm just about at my wit's end. I've never known her to act like this. The last doctor that examined her said that aside from a little dry skin, which is not unusual for her, she was perfectly fine.
Why is she hiding behind that curtain?
I have no idea. When I was out there last week, I got fed up and pulled the curtain back. She threw a fit, but otherwise she looked absolutely normal. A little pale, perhaps, but who wouldn't be pale, cooped up like that? Something has changed her. Something in that house. Hugh is just as bewildered and upset by her behavior as I am. Please get to the bottom of this, Nancy. You're our last hope.
Where is Hugh?
He was called to Rome. As a diplomat, he's always being called out of the country without warning and without any say in the matter. He'd much rather be there with Linda, although...
Mrs. Petroff? Are you there?
It's just that Hugh said it hasn't been very easy for him to talk to her lately. Whenever he calls, which is at least once a day, Linda always seems to fly off the handle for no reason, which doesn't make sense. Linda has always been extremely level-headed and even-tempered. She never gets angry. At least she didn't used to.
Who exactly is Mrs. Drake?
She's Hugh's aunt. She's taken care of Blackmoor Manor ever since her brother died. He was Hugh's father. She's a bit of a character.
I noticed.
The way she spends all her time in that conservatory, slouching around, trowel in hand, murmuring to herself. You'd think she was burying something. Or somebody.
Goodbye, Mrs. Petroff.
Goodbye, Nancy. Oh, one more thing. My niece is on call and her husband's out of town, and I told her I'd go over there and babysit if she had to work. So if you call and I don't answer, that's why. Bye.
Looks like John Penvellin may have developed some of the plants that are in here himself. Doesn't work. This must be some kind of well, but where's the water? A carnivorous plant. Cool. Messing with her plants is probably not a good idea.
All settled in? Good. I'm happy that you're visiting Linda, but I know how much you teenagers like your televisions and loud stereos, so I must insist that you act respectfully and civilly while you stay with us. Since my nephew Hugh is away on business, I am in charge of this household, and if there's one thing I cannot stand, it's noise. Hugh's daughter Jane is staying with us and would very much like to meet you, but please try not to distract her. She has her studies and mustn't be disturbed during her lessons.
What is Jane studying?
What every British schoolgirl needs to know. All of her schooling in the States has left her with, shall we say, a cultural deficit. She's in capable hands now.
Is she privately tutored?
Yes, she is, just as all Penvellins before her. Ethel Bossany comes from a long line of tutors that have taught many generations of Penvellins. Now please, I really do not have time to entertain you. You may have the run of the house, but do not break anything, and refrain from mucking about with items that aren't yours. 2 rules Jane seems incapable of following. And before I forget, our kitchen is being remodeled, so our dining situation is rather unorthodox. I've made arrangements with a local restaurant to deliver meals to us. There should be a programmed number for them on the phone in your room. Feel free to order whatever you'd like.
I spoke with Mr. Tucker at the Boar's Head pub, but frankly, I'm not at all sure what he said.
Yes, his language is quite colourful, isn't it? He's Cockney, you see. My brother Alan and I loved to make up Cockney rhymes when we were young. We'd drive our governess quite batty. Haven't got a pot of glue, haven't got a pot of glue. Ha! How we teased her.
Pot of glue?
A clue, dear. Haven't got a clue. Rhymes with glue, you see.
The picture book in Jane's room. Do you know much about its history?
My brother Alan found it somewhere in the house. He was quite fascinated by it, but he'd never let me look at it.
I'm concerned about that thing I saw outside.
It was purely your imagination, unless you saw a stray dog. But I will not countenance any histrionics about this issue. We have enough to worry about with Linda. And please do not get any ideas about going outside to investigate. I do not want you tracking mud all over this house.
This place must have quite a history. Where can I learn more?
Go see Nigel in the library. He's going to write a book about our family history.
What was your brother Alan like?
He was quite remarkable. He taught linguistics and computer science and won many prestigious awards. He loved games, especially pranks, and was forever tinkering with this and that. I do miss him sometimes. But now he's gone. He died a month after my husband passed away. And ever since I've been here all alone. Until Hugh came back from the United States, that is.
This conservatory is very beautiful. But why isn't there any water in the well?
I'm not quite sure. We never really used it, but it was always full of water. That is until my brother died. And then it just dried up. Most of these plants were brought over by my grandfather. He was quite the adventurer. I remember when he brought back Lulu from the Amazon. At first, Mother wouldn't allow us to play with it because it had picked up too many unsuitable words from sailors. But gradually learned proper manners.
Can you tell me about Lulu?
Lulu is a very old parrot. She must be over 80 years old. Please be very careful with her, especially if you feed her. Parrots have quite delicate constitutions, you know.
Goodbye.
The pleasure is all mine, child.
Do you have allergies, Mrs. Drake?
Oh, yes! Hay fever. Although I'm not at all sure what's worse, my allergies or that medication. It makes me feel as if I'm about to float right out of my shoes. Who's hungry? Who's ready for some nummies?
Did you say something, Mrs. Drake?
Not to you, dear.
Ah yes, are you here from the agency? It's about time.
Agency?
Oh dear, you're not the typist from the spiffy specialty agency, are you? Well, how do you do? I'm Nigel Mukherjee.
Pleased to meet you. My name's Nancy Drew. Are you visiting Blackmoor Manor?
I'm researching the Penvillin family, and Mrs. Drake has graciously opened the library for me. Nothing much has been written about the Penvillins. Until now.
Sounds intriguing.
It might have something to do with their scandalous history. Or perhaps it has something to do with the family treasure.
Family treasure?
For centuries, the Penvillins have been very secretive. Some believe they're protectors of a fabulous treasure, or of some dark secret. There are several skeletons rattling about in the Penvillin closet. Take, for example, Eleanor Penvillin, tried and convicted of witchcraft in 1650, quite the height of the witch trials here in Essex. It was rumored that Cromwell arranged the conviction.
But she wasn't actually a witch?
Who knows? Lady Penvillin was a rather vocal critic of Cromwell's policies and helped many of his enemies flee the country. Whether she actually was a practitioner of witchcraft is unknown, although many visitors to the manor during her tenure reported hearing strange, ghostly bells. Some even saw phantom hands floating about the manor, tolling their charmed chimes.
You mentioned some kind of scandal with the Penvillin family?
Well, having a family member burned as a witch can hardly be considered a mark of pride, I dare say. And then there's the whole business with the Blackmoor beast.
Blackmoor beast?
It's a story that's been told for generations out here. During the 1600s, many of the villagers reported seeing a strange beast with red eyes and giant fangs prowling the moors. They asked the mistress of Blackmoor Manor, Eleanor Penvillin, to put a bounty on the beast's head. But, oddly enough, she not only refused, she forbade anyone from hunting the creature. It was rumored that the beast was Eleanor's husband, whom she had cursed for finding out too much about the Penvillin secret.
When I was walking up to the house, I saw something with red eyes that called out to me.
Really? How extraordinary. Are you sure it wasn't just jet lag?
Positive, and I heard it make this kind of growling sound.
Perhaps it was the cursed husband of Eleanor Penvillin, prowling about the moors in search of lost Yanks.
Very funny. Who are all those paintings of in the Great Hall?
Those are the Penvillins who owned Blackmoor Manor at one time or another.
Have you seen any runes anywhere in the manor?
You mean like Norse runes? No, I haven't. I don't really know much about them anyway. Dead languages aren't really my bag, you know.
I'll let you get back to your work.
Valet! Fascinating piece, isn't it? James Penvillin sculpted it in 1591, although it appears that wand was added at a later date. He was quite a flamboyant figure and never married. But one day, a child appeared quite mysteriously in the castle, and he took her in as his own. That was Eleanor, and many of the townfolk believed her to be a changeling or fairy baby. Interesting. I'm researching Philippe Penvillin, and it appears that many scholars believe he was a pirate. That would explain his source of wealth. I doubt you'll find much of interest in there. They're mainly law books. Charles Penvillin was a prominent judge in the 16th century. Sad to say, he lost his son at a young age, left his estate to his grandson, Thomas. Those manuscripts are very old and brittle. They date back to the 14th century. Odo Penvillin collected most of them. His father, Randolph, and son Milo were rather more interested in military victories than in book collecting. Those are mainly Penelope Penvillin's collections of French novels. She was a patron to a raft of artists, and her salon was quite popular. She was quite the libertine, even kept her maiden name after her marriage. Hatchoo!
Gesundheit.
Danke.
mind if I use this computer?
No, not at all. But it's very old. Feel free to use mine if I'm not here.
Welcome, my adventurous friend. Don't tell my sister, but there are ghosts in Blackmoor Manor. 13 of them to be exact. The problem is they're very shy, so they only come out when it's very late at night, usually just after midnight, and even then they only show up in quiet places, like the Great Hall, and the hallways and the conservatory. What's worse, they'll only come out for a very short period of time. But if you can find and touch all 13 ghosts in the time you're allotted, come back here and I'll give you a prize, one which I guarantee you'll enjoy. So who's ready to go on a ghost hunt? Oh dear, my watch tells me that the ghosts are not likely to show up right now. Come back between midnight and 4 a.m. Farewell till then.
That must be the food I ordered. Looks like Pinky and Perky is turkey. I knew that. This smells delicious. And Uncle Fred and Johnny Rudder are just plain old bread and butter. I can use my Johnny Rudder to grease up that lock outside Jane's room. I'm stuffed. I'm sorry to bother you again, but Jane told me about the lady in black.
What lady in black? Jane never said anything to me about a lady in black. That kid is so weird. I just don't get her.
Did you receive a note or something that's upset you?
I did receive something. But it's none of your concern. You can't help me, and that's that. I'm sorry.
Linda, you have to give me a chance. Everyone is so worried about you. If you just tell me what's happened, maybe I could help. Linda? I made a promise to your mother and I plan to keep it. I'm here for you when you need me. Linda? I'll be going now.
Felicity! The door! The door! Time has
Stay tuned
come.
for more Nancy Drew, The Curse of Blackmoor Manor.